The time has finally come. We have spent the last 6 hours building up to the epic battle for Eregion. Heads shall be shaken, brains shall be splintered. A depressing day, a confusing day, ere the end of Season 2 of Rings of Power. Ride now, ride for the ruin of Amazon Prime, and sanity's ending. We return to Eregion, but this isn't the real Eregion. This is Celebrimbor's private magical Happy Land version of Eregion, complete with flowering meadows, rainbow skies, and rivers made of chocolate. He has forgotten the alarm bells, both literal and metaphorical, that he heard prior to Annatar fucking around with his mind, and he is now hard at work forging rings for men. Celebrimbor then crafts the rings for men in seemingly about 5 minutes, as of course is tradition. This appears to be utterly broken and absurd for obvious reasons, but this being Rings of Power, it ends up being broken and absurd due to a complex web of moronic nonsense, which I will get to soon enough, oh don't you worry. Celebrimbor and Annatar discuss Celebrimbor's mental health.
I trust you are not feeling overwhelmed again.
If you are paying attention to timeframes here, then this should make you go, He can't be referring to the events of episode 6 because he was losing his mind, and he was very aware that he was losing his mind, which means, as far as Celebrimbor is aware, he has been here inside the forge in isolation, crafting the rings for weeks. The explanation for this is the single biggest moment of time-bending fuckery that has happened so far in the entire series, but you will have to wait until all is revealed for me to explain how broken this truly is. Celebrimbor notices a mouse. He also sees that Feanor's hammer is missing a gem, only for it to reappear, and he then sees himself in the mirror looking rather deteriorated, before Annatar arrives and the illusion is set in place once more. Here we get our first clue as to what has actually happened, as this conversation implies that some time has indeed passed, even though it can't have done because Eregion is currently under siege, unless, of course, time works differently at different levels of the dream. Celebrimbor tells Annatar that he still needs a few days to finish the rings for men, and Annatar leaves the forge. Moments later, we see Annatar and the other elves are just kind of standing around as burning projectiles are pummeling into the ground right beside them. And Annatar informs the others that Celebrimbor has not ordered a counterattack, and that he believes the river will protect them. This is, of course, a lie, but lies have to be believable to work, and the fact that the city now looks like Osgiliath should be pretty clear evidence to Medania and the guards that, these guys are guards, never mind, anyway, moving on. Also, I don't quite know how I missed this, but I noticed it just now when putting this video together. When we first saw Eregion in Season 1, it did not have walls. So this is either just straight up a continuity error, or alternatively, we are expected to believe that at some point between Episode 2 of Season 1 and Episode 2 of Season 2, the elves of Eregion erected a wall that is miles long and consists of 10-foot thick dwarven stone. As a reminder, Season 1 of Rings of Power took place over a time period of either about 25 days or about 65 days, depending on which part of Middle-earth you were in. So even if we take the longer estimate, this means that we are expected to believe that the elves of Eregion built this giant fuck-off wall in a couple of months, and of course we didn't hear or see any indication that there was this kind of insane construction project going on. And there is also no reason I can think of for why the elves of Eregion would suddenly want a wall. Because the threat of Adar and his orcs is not a threat that manifested until the end of Season 1. Which means there is no way to rationalize ourselves out of this. This is just a straight-up continuity error, and a rather hilarious one at that. So, is the river actually a defense? We were told in Episode 2 by Gilgadaddy that this river is one of Eregion's defenses. It is obviously a river, and getting an army across a river is not easy. It isn't impossible because boats exist, and regardless of whether or not the orcs actually cross the river, they are currently in the process of demolishing Eregion from a distance with siege weapons. Annatar also just claimed that Celebrimbor said, "Don't worry, the river will protect us," only to then say, "Actually, Celebrimbor is fucking bonkers, we need to do something else." The reason for this lie is revealed later. This serves as our single reference for Sauron planting seeds of doubt in the soldiers' minds as to Celebrimbor's sanity, and he is also making himself appear both more caring and more competent than Celebrimbor. This does also show us that Sauron is seemingly helping the elves. He could have said, "Guys, chill out, we have a river," but he instead orders that they assemble their soldiers and warns that they are about to get hit by ground forces. Anatar says that they are not going to obey Celebrimbor, and he orders the guard to assemble his finest troops.
I'm pulling together a special team.
And this special unit consists of about 12 guys with bows, which is seemingly the entirety of Eregion's defenses. Gone are the days of using wide establishing shots to clearly show us the sizes of armies. This is Rings of Power. And in Rings of Power, you must guess. Medania, however, thinks something is sus, and she asks what Anatar is hiding.
Celebrimbor's mind is gone.
Whose mind is overthrown.
We are alone.
We are alone.
Not alone.
Not alone.
You have proven your quality.
You've shown your quality, sir.
Oh my god! It's a line from where it was said before, and now it's been said. It reminds me of the before. I am so easy to entertain. Anatar then realizes that the catapults have stopped, and let's pause here before we get to Adar's second insanely improbable geological plan. Okay, Sauron is kinda helping the elves, because he seems to tell them what Adar is going to do, and he tricks Medania because she is dum-dum, and Medania is suspicious of the wrong thing. Adar, if you recall, mobilized his army and marched across Middle-earth to attack a city based entirely upon intel that he did not have when he departed, and that he was only able to confirm purely by chance. We are also seemingly expected to believe that Sauron wants all of this to happen, although the hows and the whys have not even yet been implied, so I am still waiting, probably naively, for this to make sense. In Part 6, I claimed that the orcs had pushed these siege engines across the continent, but I want to quickly clarify, it is possible, and when I say possible, I mean equally impossible, that the orcs constructed these siege weapons on site when they arrived in the forest. We did not see any indication that this is what happened. This would obviously take rather a long time, and every second they stay in the forest building catapults is another second where they risk a discovery. From what we see and hear, these catapults simply popped into existence when the writers needed the orcs to have catapults, and it is entirely up to the viewer to do the writer's job for them and explain how the orcs have catapults. And, well, because the writers for Rings of Power are thoroughly qualified for the job they have been given, we are really left with three options, all of which are equally absurd. The orcs pushed these tremendous weapons of war across the continent, off-screen. The orcs built them in a day or so outside of Eregion, off-screen. Or an unseen wizard magicked them into existence, off-screen. Anyway, now it is time for the next stage of Adar's master plan. Adar marched across Middle-earth with the intention of demolishing Eregion. He seems somewhat familiar with the geography of the area, so he will have known that Eregion is next to a river and a mountain. He needs a way to get his army across the river and into the city. The obvious answer would typically be to use boats, which would both be simpler for the orcs to either carry with them or build on site. The downside to using boats to cross the river would be that the orcs are vulnerable whilst crossing. But as we have seen, Eregion does not have any kind of army or local defense force outside of about 12 asshats with bows, and given what Adar ends up doing, the prospect of taking heavy losses is evidently not a problem for him. If the orcs had shields instead of catapults, they could cross the river in boats with minimal casualties and overwhelm Eregion with sheer numbers. Instead of deciding to use boats, because that would of course be boring, Adar has decided to do a reverse Treebeard and make the dam stop the river. We see that there is a very precariously balanced rock at the top of this mountain, and Adar presumably knew about this, which brings to mind a rather ridiculous image of a team of orc surveyors led by Plorp, Glug's accountant, going out into the hills of Eregion beforehand and working out the best part of the mountain to hit for maximum effectiveness. I am half joking, but this was evidently Adar's plan. Everything hinges upon this working. Which means he presumably must have gathered all of this intel before leaving Mordor, which simply does not fit with the timeline at all. The only way to make this work is to say, well, Adar and the orcs built their catapults in the forest really quickly. Then Plorp and his team of surveyors went mountaineering. Plorp returned and told Adar, yeah, you can totally dam the river if you hit the mountain right about there. And Adar was like, oh, okay, perfect. We don't need to bother making boats. We can dam the river with our catapults and cross on foot. This is highly unlikely, but aside from the prospect of the elves not noticing legions of orcs on their doorstep, building catapults and climbing neighboring mountains, this is possible. The problem is that I just had to do the writer's job for them by coming up with something that sounds insane to connect the dots that they have presented me with. But anyway, Adar's evil plan is that he fires his catapults at the mountain, causing a rockfall. And these rocks land perfectly in the river and dam it with seemingly 100% effectiveness.
Mission accomplished.
As stated before, I am not a volcano explosionologist, nor am I a river damologist, but my understanding is that you absolutely cannot simply plonk some rocks into a river as large as this and have it magically just make there not be any water. A small river, maybe. If you had the time to properly construct a dam, absolutely. But if you suddenly drop a big rock into a river, the river still, exists. Even if the catapults oh so perfectly broke off exactly the right parts of rock needed to completely block the entire stretch of river, you still have a massive amount of water on the other side of the rock, and that water has a degree of momentum behind it, and that water has to go somewhere, and so it will either go over or around the blockage. Which, actually, come to think of it, may have been a far better idea, given that Adar is apparently capable of using catapults with this degree of accuracy and with this effective of an outcome. Just place the rocks somewhere slightly downstream and flood the city. This plan is insane, but given that Adar seems to have been perfectly accurate with his catapults, I am more willing to accept this than the volcano incident in Season 1. The problem with the volcano was not that it required an insane degree of precision. The problem was that volcanoes don't work like that, and that the whole long con of building a giant invisible trench was absurd. Conversely, if this river is not particularly deep, which it isn't, if it is not a fast-moving river, which it isn't, and if the river is located in a valley with walls on both sides, which appears to be the case, then I can accept that this river could be dammed in this manner, provided you dropped a sufficient amount of rocks into it. How long the dam would actually last is a different question. Which means the problem I have with this is less focused on could it actually happen, and more focused on why on earth would Adar choose this as his method for getting into the city.
Why'd you have to make this so fucking complicated?
His insane evil plan went absolutely perfectly. He was able to use catapults with incredible precision, and cause just enough of a rockfall to block the river with enough effectiveness for him to cross it on foot. Additionally, if the catapults can do this to a mountain, then one would think they would be able to do something to the walls of Eregion, but Adar doesn't even appear to try. Also, Adar seemingly does not have a plan B. What exactly is he going to do if this doesn't work? Well, you see, that doesn't matter because it did work. What a silly question. And no, this is not comparable to, for example, saying, well, what would the Uruk-hai have done had they been unable to blow up the Deeping Wall? This is because the logistics of dropping a bomb and igniting it are nowhere near as complex as decapitating a mountain and using it to block a river. And had the Uruk-hai failed in their first attempt to blow up the wall, they could obviously just try again, which is absolutely not the case here. If we just kind of go with what the show wants us to accept, that you can block a river in this manner, had the rocks not fallen absolutely perfectly, then this would not have worked, and Adar would have had to go home.
Pretty pathetic, huh?
The drums of war begin to sound, and the orcs charge into the riverbed that is now completely dry, while the 12 arseholes with bows do their best to stop them. Predictably, there is no strategy here beyond Unga Bunga, and I guess these are orcs who are well versed in the art of Unga Bunga, but at the same time, they are led by Adar, whom we are meant to believe has a strategic mind and cares for the orcs. So this strategy leaves rather a lot to be desired. Yay, well done, you set a line to make it look like there is some amount of organization to this defense. These motherfuckers are already popping orcs left, right, and center, and this dude is like, keep doing the thing that you're already doing. I'm in charge.
Captain, they have a Ravager.
Thank you, lady. I don't have eyes.
What do your elf eyes see?
Nothing!
So, the orcs have one single siege contraption thingy that they are slowly dragging through the mud. This contraption is remarkably ineffective, which we will get to later. Also, just throwing this in here before the battle gets going, because it is quite important. How do you get in or out of Eregion?
I have no fucking idea.
It isn't so much that the writers have done a poor job of explaining this, it is more so that they haven't explained this. Since the orcs arrived, both Durin and Anatar have managed to travel to and from Khazad-dûm. There are a couple of other possible instances of characters traveling inexplicably past the orc army, but I haven't confirmed them for definite. I will look at those when I do the final autopsy. And so, my mind is cast back yet again to Helm's Deep. The filmmakers spent about 25 minutes showing us the layout of Helm's Deep prior to the battle, and this is all integrated into the dialogue of the characters, and it is not purely expository in nature. We also see Helm's Deep both inside and out from multiple angles, and by the time the battle starts, we understand the stakes, we understand the logistics of entering and leaving the fortress. This is very important because it means the audience is able to clearly understand what they are seeing and why the characters are doing what they are doing. The soldiers must fend off the Uruk-hai because if they don't, everyone, including the women and children, will die. It is revealed during the battle that there is a way out of the caves that had not been mentioned until that point, but this does not change the battle, nor does it change our understanding of why the characters are doing what they are doing. Conversely, I am not going to grab my stopwatch and work out how long we have spent in Eregion, but it is absolutely longer than 25 minutes. And yet, our understanding of the geographical and structural layout is that there is a river and there is at least one gate. That's it. We have no idea how people get in and out of the city. Evidently, it must be possible to leave the city without walking past the orcs, because this has happened multiple times at this point, but Adar seems to be unaware of these other entrances, as do the elves. We don't get anything like Medania, take the women and wounded and children and head into the caves. We have no logistics outside of, hello guard, get your special unit of 12 idiots and do your best. Okay, Adar is a geological mastermind, doesn't really care about the orcs, and employs strategy so as to maximize drama in a TV show. Which is actually consistent because that's exactly what he did in Season 1. We then cut to Khazad-dûm, which I was not expecting. I was figuring that this episode would be entirely dedicated to the battle, but apparently not. Na'vi informs King Durin that Eregion is under siege.
The guards received that entreaty from an elf at the west gate.
The king says that the elves are more desperate than he had thought, and he orders that the mine be taken back immediately.
Every hour that we delay costs us unthinkable wealth.
I know that the king is at this point well beyond fucking bonkers. He is utterly and irrevocably insane. He is an infantile caricature of a greedy, selfish, rich person. And as I have explained before, there is a difference between someone being vanilla crazy and someone being fucking bonkers, and this exemplifies why. King Durin's actions here do not make any sense, and there is no reason why he would believe that they do make sense. His intention is apparently to remove Durin and Disa from the mine so that Na'vi and the others can extract its contents. He can then turn the contents into weapons and armor. They can travel to Eregion, get inside the city through unspecified means, and they can set up a billboard saying Mithril swords and armor, $1 billion each.
What the fuck?
The siege has already begun, you fucking pancake! The writers truly do not understand how time works, and yes, I get it, the king is greedy and insane, but Na'vi doesn't even attempt to explain that the words he just said don't make sense, even if the king is greedy and insane. The king's thought process is no more complex than, money! The elves will have either won or lost by the time he gets there, but hey, maybe he wants to sell mithril weapons to the orcs at this point. I have no fucking clue, because this man is an idiot's idea of a greedy person. Anyway, when we last saw Durin and Disa, they did bats, and then they were like, oh yeah, time for stage 2 of our retarded plan to stop the crazy mining. What is stage 2, you ask? Well, stage 2 is that they just kind of stand there with pickaxes and they ask Na'vi to leave. Because of what happens next, we never actually see what stage 2 is, but Disa stated in episode 6,
They'll be back.
Then we'll be ready.
ready to do what? Fight off your own people one by one with a pickaxe? I don't know why I expected any kind of plan beyond Unga Bunga from these writers, but I very much wish that they hadn't further damaged Durin and Disa by clarifying that they do indeed intend to physically fight off anyone who wants to enter the mine, and I guess they will just stand here forever until the miners stop trying. Disa, honey, you can cause cave-ins with your flatulence. Just aim at the fucking mithril hole and channel yesterday's dinner. Anyway, it turns out that Na'vi and the other dwarves have had a change of heart.
We stand with you.
Well, that was remarkably easy. Could have maybe been accomplished without bats. Maybe, have a conversation with Na'vi and sway him. Or, alternatively, just have him change his mind because he's changed his mind. We don't need to bother with any of that pesky screenwriting. He's finally realized how insane the king is. He's decided to go to the mine as instructed, but has instead declared that he is on Durin's side. Na'vi continues that the ring has taken the king's heart.
I will not let it take this mountain.
Disa says they need to get the ring away from the king, but Na'vi replies that the elves are also in peril. Then he informs Durin that an elf is outside wanting to speak with him.
This particular elf has been banished from all dwarven lands.
Oh, so you mean it's Elrond? Stop with the cryptic bullshit. Time is of the essence. People are dying. Stop talking like you are in a TV show manufactured for maximum drama. Maybe act as though you exist within the world in which you have been placed. I really want to like Na'vi, but Rings of Power has made it impossible for me to like anyone because they all suffer from the same blight. The blight of being written by a pair of spoons. Also, there are two separate banishments that we need to remember. The second is that at the end of Season 1, Elrond was ejected from Khazad-dûm by the king, and it was implied that he had been banished, but this was never directly stated. However, the banishment that this dialogue is a callback to is the first banishment that never actually happened because everyone forgot.
Should the elf forfeit, he will be banished from all dwarven land forever!
Which means Na'vi is saying the line that Durin said in Season 1, despite not having been present when he actually said it, and he is saying that they need to be careful because Elrond has been banished, even though this dialogue does not relate to the actual time when Elrond was banished. In other words, this is wholly unjustifiable fan service that relies upon the idea that the audience forgot what actually happened in Season 1. I also find it highly amusing that Rings of Power has now reached the point where it is nostalgia boning itself, not just the Peter Jackson movies. Anyway, they let Elrond in because fuck the rules. At this point, I have totally lost track of people's movements across Middle-earth. I will properly assess and dissect this when I do the end-of-series autopsy to find out how much sense it doesn't make. But essentially, after running from outside of Eregion to Lindon and speaking with Gilgabro, Elrond has since run back the other way, past Eregion, past the Orc army, to Khazad-dûm. Durin and Elrond say hi, and they both claim that a lot has happened to each of them since they last saw each other. In short, Elrond was tricked into making evil magical rings by Galadriel. The elves then decided to use them because James Corden is old and wise. Galadriel had a vision that Sauron was in Eregion, so they went to Eregion, whereupon she sacrificed herself, despite believing that she was the only person capable of defeating Sauron. Elrond went back to Lindon and told Gilgatron that there were orcs, and then he went to Khazad-dûm to tell Durin. Meanwhile, Durin got deprinced, Khazad-dûm got earthquaked, they went to Eregion to get magic rings, Khazad-dûm got fixed, but the king turned into a greedy retard, and now Durin is trying to martyr himself to stop his father from being greedy.
Hey, wait a minute.
Please, mention the ring. Mention the rings. Anatar, rings, evil rings. My father is insane because we decided off screen to get this shady elf called Anatar to make us magic rings.
Oh my god, what the fuck? That is obviously Sauron. We need to go and stop him. We can totally get into Eregion because you just kind of can, provided you do it off screen.
This obviously isn't going to happen because the writers don't want it to. So, naturally, they resort to their method for writing characters in Rings of Power. Everyone is conveniently vague about things, and they don't say what they would obviously say in this situation. Or at least that is what begins to happen. Elrond asks Durin for aid. Thousands of lives are at hazard. Celebrimbor is among them. Now, since Elrond mentioned Celebrimbor, is Durin going to mention Anatar? The guy he is highly suspicious of. The guy who claimed that Elrond was busy doing busy.
No!
He does not. If Durin had no reason to be suspicious of Anatar, or if the rings hadn't turned his dad into a crazy, then yeah, sure, he may not have a reason to ask Elrond about Anatar. But given what Durin knows and believes to be true, asking about Anatar should be at the top of his fucking list. However, because the writers have learned a new trick in crafting Season 2, the trick of cutting away in the middle of a conversation, Durin is not allowed to mention Anatar or the rings, because this would be too early a revelation in the TV show titled The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Rather than doing what they might have done in Season 1 and having the characters dancing around the subject in a laughable attempt to avoid addressing the obvious, the writers have realized it is far easier to just kind of, stop the scene and we'll do something else. Na'vi, has had enough of the king's bullshit. And he also talks like he is in a movie trailer when people are fucking dying. Durin doesn't ask very obvious and very critical questions. Disa wants to unga bunga her people to death, and King Durin thinks he can make enough mithril weapons to supply a fucking army in 5 minutes. Or alternatively, he wants to sell weapons and armor to dead people. Anatar then asks Celebrimbor if the rings are finished. It appears Celebrimbor has gone Green Mile and he has made friends with a mouse, but it turns out that the Green Mile is not the movie from 1999 that he is referencing. He is instead referencing The Matrix.
Do you not see a cycle repeating itself at intervals?
Glitch in the Matrix. It happens when they change something.
It turns out that Celebrimbor has worked out that something is wrong. His world isn't real. Sauron's power has limits that until now hadn't been alluded to, and these limits, surprise fucking surprise, allow the plot of Rings of Power to take place. This is where we get some clarity on what is actually going on inside the Forge, and how Anatar is influencing reality.
Whatever so inspired this epiphany, I assure you we have not the time for it.
We would appear to have all the time that we need.
Celebrimbor has noticed that the mouse does the same thing after a set interval of time, and the candles have not burned an inch. Anatar has trapped Celebrimbor inside a pocket dimension where time flows differently, and whilst this does explain how he has been able to work for weeks to create the rings, it tears open a plot hole of cosmic proportions because Anatar could have done this many times before, and yet he chose not to. Sauron has been established as a being who can enter people's minds and manipulate their perception of reality, but he can also, seemingly, create pocket dimensions and manipulate the passage of time. I want to laugh at this because it is very comical. The writers have manipulated reality and time repeatedly in Rings of Power, and they have now allowed a character in Rings of Power to do the same. But the fact is that this breaks the story. Again. This isn't just a big illusion that Sauron has created to trick Celebrimbor, because Celebrimbor is actually making the rings inside the Forge, which means time is passing at a different rate to outside of the Forge, and Celebrimbor is interacting with the physical world. If Anatar can manipulate time in a localized manner, as he is doing inside the Forge, then it is absurd to suggest that he has not done this before in the process of creating the rings. This is a similar problem to the idea of superheroes who can move at the speed of light or whatever, such as the Flash and Quicksilver, because if they can move so fast that time seems to stop around them, then this means they are not bound by time. They may not necessarily be able to go back in time, but they can stretch time to an infinite degree, which means where it may take a year to learn how to play the piano or to create powerful magic rings, the Flash could, theoretically, do it in a split second. If you account for this as a writer, then this is of course not a problem, but the writers of Rings of Power have an amusing habit of failing to account for anything, whilst amplifying the magical abilities present within their world. If Sauron can do this, then he can't lose. He has an infinite amount of time. He could create a temporal anomaly localized around himself and learn to be as good of a smith as Celebrimbor, while maybe a few days or weeks pass in the real world. He could have explained to Celebrimbor that he has the power to freeze time early on, and had Celebrimbor willingly enter the illusion to craft the rings with no time constraints, which means the element of deception can now be thrown out of the window. As with many incredible superpowers, this one does have limits, and these limits are not explained, but are absolutely exploited by the writers. We have to assume that Sauron did not intend for Celebrimbor to accidentally catch a glimpse of his real self, or notice the mouse, the candle, or the hammer. Which means now I get to compare Sauron to the most memorable character from Inception, Nash.
Who?
This example is too complex for me to properly explain here, but essentially, Sato works out that he is inside a dream because he realizes the carpet in his apartment is not real. This happened because Nash, the architect of the dream, was careless and he didn't accurately recreate the carpet from Sato's apartment. And his reasoning was,
I didn't know he was gonna rub his damn cheek on it.
This event is what allows the entire plot of Inception to happen, and so it is rather important. and it relies entirely upon this extremely minor character making a mistake. The difference in how this plays out in Inception versus Rings of Power is this. In Inception, it is plausible that Sato could discover this discrepancy, and for Cobb and his team to not see this coming, because Cobb throwing Sato to the ground to intimidate him is an entirely reasonable thing to happen. We understand why the mistake was made, leading to Sato realizing that they are inside a dream, which happens entirely because Nash was not expecting Sato to lie on top of the carpet, which he believed was a reasonable assumption to make, but the other members of the team thought he was careless, and so yeah, we can probably say that Nash was taking a risk for whatever reason. In Rings of Power, this is very much not the case. It is not at all reasonable for Sauron to not expect that Celebrimbor would fail to realize that he is being tricked, because Celebrimbor is very familiar with Feanor's hammer, and he would absolutely notice if a gem was suddenly missing. He also has eyes and would obviously notice a mouse running across the forge every couple of hours. Sauron also inexplicably doesn't account for Celebrimbor simply using a mirror and seeing his own reflection. Additionally, unlike Nash in Inception, Sauron is essentially a demigod, or if we draw purely from what Rings of Power has told us, Sauron is a powerful sorcerer. He is a master of manipulation and deception bent on taking over the world. His capability, intelligence, and motivation are all in a totally different league to Nash. We are essentially comparing a thief to a fallen angel who wants to dominate all life. And so it is entirely reasonable to have a far higher degree of scrutiny when assessing Sauron's actions, but in the understatement of the fucking century, because Christopher Nolan is a far more accomplished writer than these two clowns, this extremely minor character who appears on screen for 2 fucking minutes ends up being far more understandable in his incompetence than Sauron. Anyway, Celebrimbor realizes that Anatar has done something to him.
No emissary of the Valar would do this.
The writers have evidently forgotten that in episode 6, Anatar clarified that he did not seek Celebrimbor because the Valar needed him. Anatar sought Celebrimbor because Anatar needed him.
I came to Eregion not because the Valar needed you, but because I did.
And so why Celebrimbor is only now realizing that Anatar is not an envoy of the Valar, I have absolutely no idea. Celebrimbor then asks Anatar who he is, and he replies, "I am the one keeping the storm at bay, balancing the sun above your head, to give you the chance to prove your worth." Then this happens.
I want the 9! No!
So, Celebrimbor just accidentally threw Feanor's hammer out of the window, which shatters the illusion, and he begins to hear the distinct sounds of war. Leading me to ask, what are the limits of this pocket dimension? Had it been established that Anatar had barricaded all of the doors and windows so as to prevent Celebrimbor from accidentally breaking this illusion, then, okay, this would have lined up. But we saw at the start of the episode that Celebrimbor was chilling on the balcony at the top of the forge, inside of this magical happy land, and all seemed well. The illusion is therefore not bound to the forge. Celebrimbor can look outside, open the windows, even go outside, and the illusion persists. However, for some reason, when a window is broken, the illusion stops. He then pokes his head out of the same balcony that he was on earlier in the episode and realizes that Eregion is kind of in trouble. The illusion then lifts completely, and we see that the forge has also been heavily damaged, which means Celebrimbor can't have been physically interacting with reality, and so how he managed to make the rings for men, I have no idea. Something I do want to quickly highlight in Season 2 as a positive, the guy who plays Celebrimbor. In Season 1, he was entirely forgettable because he didn't have to actually do anything, but in Season 2, this guy has done a very good job of showing this character deteriorating and having conflicting feelings regarding Anatar, which culminates with this shocking revelation that Eregion is under siege. The character writing is utter nonsense, but I will give props to the actor for doing a good job with the material he was given. Celebrimbor then discovers that the mithril is actually goo.
Oh no.
I didn't mention this in part 6 because I thought that this was a setup for something else, but before Anatar gave the mithril to Celebrimbor whilst inside a dream, he sliced his hand open. I figured that this was for some kind of blood ritual that would pop up in episode 7, but it is revealed here that Anatar did not get mithril from Na'vi as he claimed. He He has instead made his goo look like mithril, and presumably have the physical properties of mithril, because at tremendous risk of stating the obvious, you cannot craft rings using goo. So how Celebrimbor crafted rings using goo, I have no idea, but that is pretty far down the list of questions I have with this insane sequence of events. As in Season 1, Anatar realizes the jig is up. He has now given up entirely on trying to hide anything. As soon as the window was shattered, he could have zapped Celebrimbor to the floor and trapped him inside another pocket dimension. Instead, he allows the illusion to break. He allows Celebrimbor to realize what is going on. He explains what he did with the mithril, and he explains that he is Sauron. If Sauron did not need Celebrimbor anymore, then yeah, okay, this would probably be fine. But Anatar currently does not believe that the rings for men are finished. He still needs Celebrimbor. And if Celebrimbor stays inside this pocket dimension, Sauron has all the time in the world. So Sauron, we can get rid of Got Mithril because he actually didn't. However, he reveals his evil plan for no reason, gets really, really angry with Celebrimbor, and has no idea how to effectively use his powers. Celebrimbor, distraught at the destruction of his city, and can make rings with goo. Anatar then allows Celebrimbor to leave for some reason. The reason is that the writers are having Sauron act in a counterintuitive manner so as to escalate drama and tension in a TV show. Celebrimbor walks outside and rather hilariously gets catapulted immediately, but don't worry, he's totally fine. We see a poor little doggo because that is shorthand for feel sad now. Celebrimbor then reaches the battlements, and by reaches the battlements I mean he walks over to the next set and he finds Medania. The only reason I can think for why he has gone to find Medania is because he cares about her and he doesn't want her to die. As for why Medania is on the front lines just kind of standing here, I have no idea. And how Celebrimbor knew she was here, I also have no idea. They then stand on the wall that the orcs have begun to climb over just very slightly off-screen, and they have a lengthy conversation about what exactly Anatar did to Celebrimbor. This scene goes on for quite a while, and it takes place entirely on the battlements, and yet no character acts as though they are in imminent danger of being shot by the orcs, because, of course, the orcs are on a different set, and so the characters are not actually in danger. Celebrimbor explains what happened, but neither Medania nor the soldiers appear to believe him, having been poisoned against him by Anatar. Then they realize that the orcs are setting up siege equipment directly beneath them.
This is the thinnest part of the wall.
Why in the fuck is there a thinnest part of the wall? And why are you knowingly standing on the thinnest part of the wall? Is that Medania's job during this battle to just stand on inexplicable structural weaknesses for moral support? What? Oh god, no, what's happening now?
But random, in Helm's Deep, the Uruk-hai exploit a structural weakness in much the same way. Why is this any different?
Stop it, retarded alter ego, that isn't how anything works. You can't just remove all context and claim that these two scenes are at all alike. Helm's Deep having a sewer under part of the wall is entirely reasonable. It was a weakness that was exploited by Saruman using technology that had never been seen before. And so, neither Theoden nor whoever built Helm's Deep could possibly have seen this coming. In Rings of Power, the writers needed a way for the orcs to break their way into the city, so it turns out they are similarly exploiting a structural weakness. Instead of exploiting a necessary weakness, such as a gate or a sewer, the structural weakness of Eregion is that they built part of the wall so that it was thinner than the rest of the wall. Why? Well, because the writers couldn't think of a better way to get the orcs into the city, so they decided to sacrifice the elves of Eregion on the altar of fuckwit.
Wait, so do you mean they could have just removed this line of dialogue and that would have solved the problem? It doesn't need to be the thinnest part of the wall, it could just be the wall that is all the same all around and the orcs are in the process of punching a hole in it.
Absolutely right, it seems you are learning, although why you aren't understanding what an elf in Middle-earth looks like, I'm still unsure.
Hey, random.
Oh, what now?
Merry Christmas.
It's October! Anyway, Celebrimbor yells to brace the foundations, but oh no, Anatar is here.
He is Sauron. Seize him!
The soldiers do not, because Anatar tricked them with that one lie earlier, which means they are now entirely loyal to Anatar and not Celebrimbor, whom they have presumably known for thousands of years. Also, these three guys have stopped fighting for this conversation. One guy died earlier, which means of the 12, there are now 8 archers currently holding off legions of orcs. These 8 are the true heroes of the Second Age. Anyway, no one believes Celebrimbor because the writers won't let them, and Celebrimbor says to look at Anatar's hand and observe that his blood is black. Celebrimbor knows that Sauron can manipulate space and time. He actually has no way of confirming that he is standing on the battlements of Eregion, and he also has no way of confirming that Eregion is currently being besieged, so he would absolutely know that Sauron could just make his blood be red instead of black, which is obviously what happens. But that said, I will give a slight pass to this, because Celebrimbor really has no idea what is going on. He is obviously overwhelmed and emotional, and so him saying something that doesn't entirely make sense is more explicable than it is with every other character in every other scene in Rings of Power. As for why Sauron revealed that he has a cut on his hand and that his blood is red, I am unsure, because he could have just hidden the wound entirely. By revealing this, he has shown Medania and the soldiers that his palm has been sliced open somehow, and I guess he is hoping that none of them will be like, hey, wait, what the were you doing some blood rituals or some shit? Anyway, then this happens.
No! Oh my god!
Sauron mind controls Celebrimbor to throw Medania off the battlements, and the orcs kill her. Well, that was a shame. I guess I do find it mildly amusing that Sauron said he would reward Medania, and then in the very next scene he kills her because...
I'm done with you.
Sauron is pure evil, but it really does seem as though his priority here is to torture Celebrimbor, which is why he let the illusion drop, revealed his identity as Sauron, showed up here to gaslight Celebrimbor further, and then made Celebrimbor accidentally kill Medania, whom he obviously cares for. He tells Celebrimbor to return to the forge to finish the rings, and in return, Sauron will spare the city. Celebrimbor asks what Sauron will do with the rings, and he replies,
"Create a perfect and lasting peace."
This confirms that the reason why he is torturing Celebrimbor is to coerce him into finishing the rings. But he could have just conjured whatever he wanted to trick Celebrimbor when they were still inside the forge. Letting Celebrimbor escape and revealing his true nature has only made it that much more difficult for Sauron to get what he wants. Instead of revealing that he is Sauron, he could have revealed that he is actually a Valar, and done the whole smoke and mirrors thing once again, maybe allowed Celebrimbor to see a glimpse of the very real destruction of Eregion when he looks out of his window, before snatching it away and placing him back in a mind prison, and telling him that the destruction of Eregion is a vision of what will happen if Celebrimbor does not create the rings. This would have made far more sense than what Sauron ends up doing, and so much like in Season 1, Sauron continues to be a character who makes nonsensical moves entirely because the writers want to exploit his insane power level for maximum drama in a TV show. They have no idea how to handle even the most basic character, which is why when they try to write a very complex and powerful character such as this, it immediately turns into a delicious soup of incoherent garbage. Okay, Sauron tortures when other options are available. Celebrimbor has kinda been driven mad, and Medania is dead because Sauron is an asshole. Before Celebrimbor can answer, a horn sounds, and it turns out the elven army from Lindon has arrived. This means that back in episode 5, when Elrond told Celebrimbor that, hey, guess what? In the mother of all surprises, Galadriel was fucking right. We need the army to go to Eregion now because there's orcs suddenly. And Gil-galad was like, oh, that will not be possible because I think Sauron is behind all of this. This scene was a complete non sequitur designed to build tension because the army had evidently not departed for Mordor. And what Gil-galad should have said is, oh yeah, cool, let's go. Anyway, this shot here is the first time we have seen the elven army, and this sequence does a passable job of showing us the size of the army, which is good, but it is not good enough because the show has done a piss-poor job of showing us the size of Eregion's defense force, and it has not done the job of showing us the size of the orc army. Because Rings of Power seems to have a weird aversion to showing wide establishing shots of armies. I am rather curious to go through the entire season in the final autopsy video to see how many times the show actually does this and to compare it to both the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies. Anyway, Elrond is back somehow, which doesn't appear to line up whatsoever. What the show is implying, but has not stated, is that Elrond went from the forest back to Lindon after discovering the orc army, then he went to Khazad-dûm to ask Durin for help, and now he is here again with the army. If this is what happened, then it means that the elven army waited for Elrond, the politician, to go to Khazad-dûm and do some diplomacy. It is maybe possible that the elves would wait until they know if the dwarves are going to be supporting them before they attack, but I don't consider this reasonable because Eregion is already burning, and I don't believe that Gilgaloid would hold back when his people are dying, because this would require that if the dwarves had said no, then he would be like, oh okay, sorry Eregion, I guess we can't help you. The fix for this would have been for the company of Elrond to split up, and for 2 to go to Lindon, whilst 2 go to Khazad-dûm. But this doesn't happen because the writers wanted 2 dramatic payoffs, and both of these payoffs required the presence of Elrond. Anyway, the orcs and Adar form a defensive line, and the elven army stops, which I found highly amusing, right before Elrond leads the charge. I can't tell you why a diplomat is leading Lindon's cavalry charge, but I guess politicians really are just that trustworthy. Also, what are they is present? I'd forgotten about her. I wonder if she will be characterized before the end of the season. Anyway, as the elves charge, the orcs wheel their little prison wagon to the front, even though we didn't see it until just now, because it was hidden from us until the most dramatically effective moment. The elves must have seen it, because it is quite large, and because they are fucking elves.
What do your elf eyes see?
Nothing!
Adar reveals that Galadriel is inside the wagon, and an orc has a spear at her throat.
Oh my god, who gives a shit?
Please.
If only she hadn't tried to 1v1 a fucking orc army for no reason back in episode 4. And now, the pieces of ineptitude are falling into place. I now understand why the army is being led by a diplomat. Because Elrond cares about Galadriel. If Gilgamesh was leading the charge, he may not have stopped. And if one of the other commanders of the various armies that definitely exist, I promise, was leading the charge, then it is anyone's guess as to what would happen. Which means the writers decided to have Elrond lead the charge despite him not being a soldier, and they did this because emotional manipulation. The writers once again started with the payoff and worked backwards without justifying anything. So Elrond realizes that, oh no, they have Galadriel, and then he stops the cavalry charge in under a second, which means this wasn't a real cavalry charge, and the elves were not in fact charging into battle. They were horse riders playing dress-up. If we compare this to the ride of the Rohirrim, just imagine for a second trying to stop that shit midway across the Pelennor fields. You are not stopping that, let alone stopping it in less time than it takes for Elrond to queef.
Welcome, Commander Elrond.
He isn't a commander, stop fucking lying to me! Just to be clear, I'm okay with Elrond having some fighting experience. I think that is more than reasonable given that he is thousands of years old. But telling me that Elrond is suddenly a commander of an army is like telling me suddenly that Galadriel is a politician. She isn't. We have received no indication that she is. She has been explicitly stated to be something else, which means the show is retconning itself because it wants to be dramatic and emotional. Right, Galadriel, whoops, got caught. Elrond is blind and is decaptain now, and also is teleport man. Then we cut away to inside Adar's tent, and so what precisely the fuck is happening on the battlefield, I have no idea. This happened off screen, which means we, of course, don't need to worry, because the fact that it happened off screen means that it didn't fucking happen. But to accept this, it means that we have to implicitly accept that Adar threatened to kill Galadriel and told Elrond, come with me, we are going into my tent to negotiate. Elrond then agreed, thereby granting Adar further power to kill both Galadriel and Elrond, both of whom are apparently high-ranking military commanders. Given Adar's actions in the Southlands and in attacking Eregion, there is no reason for the elves to believe Adar to be anything other than a genocidal maniac, and yet we must accept that Elrond decided to agree and negotiate with Adar. Additionally, this gambit relies entirely on Elrond's desire to save Galadriel's life, when it is revealed momentarily that things are nowhere near that simple. Adar asks Elrond to show him Galadriel's ring, but Elrond claims he does not have it with him, which makes sense because obviously you wouldn't bring that fucking thing to a negotiation with your enemy. Galadriel says Elrond should have kept charging, and Adar says,
If she speaks again, cut out her tongue.
Hey, I'm starting to like this guy again. Anyway, Adar continues that Sauron is their common enemy, and he asks for the ring so that he can defeat Sauron. Elrond responds that Adar has done Sauron's bidding by attacking Eregion. As I have said, the show has not yet explained why Sauron wanted this to happen, nor has it explained why Elrond and Galadriel believe that Sauron wanted this to happen. Eregion needs to be intact for Sauron to finish the rings, and so, unless the show explains otherwise, this is a plot hole. Adar claims that Eregion has fallen into shadow, and that every elf now belongs to Sauron. This means that Adar either believes, or wants Elrond to believe, that attacking Eregion was an unfortunate necessity in defeating Sauron. This relies entirely upon Sauron being able to mind control or otherwise trick an entire city, which Elrond should maybe question, but instead he says,
"Not Lord Celebrimbor."
He's like, no, my friend, he would never help Sauron. But Adar then replies that actually Celebrimbor is the one who let Sauron in, and we can add this to the list of things that Adar can't know but knows anyway. And again, I will remind you that the entire reason why this happened was because Galadriel declined to tell Celebrimbor of Sauron's identity at the end of Season 1. Everything that has happened to Eregion in Season 2 is a consequence of Galadriel's pride. But because the writers think she has developed as a character and has learned from her mistakes, they do not allow Elrond or anyone else to lay the blame at her feet. Adar's offer is that Elrond hand over the ring that he doesn't have in exchange for Galadriel's life. The next part isn't stated, but is implied. Elrond must also order the elves to fall back, and they must allow Adar to continue destroying Eregion so that he can defeat Sauron. Again, I am forced to state the obvious. There is no way in hell that Elrond should accept this deal, and Elrond doesn't accept this deal, but there is also no way in hell that Adar should expect that Elrond will accept this deal. Elrond has no idea of the state of Eregion. The only evidence he has that Sauron is even there is that Galadriel had a spooky vision, and that Adar thinks he is there, and the only evidence he has that the elves of Eregion, including his friend Celebrimbor, are under Sauron's sway is that Adar just claimed that this was the case. Additionally, this is all Galadriel's fault. Both Sauron's takeover of Eregion and her getting captured so as to be exploited as a bargaining chip. What Elrond should do is claim that he is going to retrieve the ring for Adar and then immediately slap the orcs with a good old-fashioned cavalry charge, no questions asked. Alternatively, at the very least, he should demand to speak to Galadriel in private so that she can confirm if what Adar just said is actually true, to the best of her knowledge, so that he can decide what should be done. Adar reveals that he knew, or at least knew of, Elrond's mother, and says that if even a fragment of her wisdom is in Elrond's veins, then he must know he cannot defeat Adar in battle. Elrond actually can't know this, nor can we, because Rings of Power has not ever given us any kind of hint as to the scale of Adar's army. It is revealed momentarily that the orcs apparently outnumber the elves 10-1, but this does not correlate with what we have actually seen, nor does it correlate with what Elrond should believe to be the case. Additionally, the fact that the orcs used Galadriel to stop the cavalry charge in the first place would be a clear indication to Elrond that Adar is absolutely afraid of the elves overwhelming them. Adar says he will outfight the elves. Elrond says not before he has painted the ground with the blood of the orcs, and he asks,
"Are you prepared to spend their lives so freely?"
I see exactly what the writers are doing here, but Adar is kind of already spending the lives of the orcs rather freely. They are attacking the city by employing the age-old strategy of Unga Bunga. But because Elrond says this, Glug and the other orcs appear to reconsider their loyalty to Adar, but Adar insists.
The ring for Galadriel's life.
Elrond declines the offer and says to ask him again in battle when he has a knife to Adar's neck, and Adar accepts. Adar should not accept. Elrond has refused to hand over the ring, so what needs to happen next is Glug needs to begin rearranging Galadriel's face with his knife. Adar can then ask, "Do you think I'm fucking playing? I will kill her." And if Elrond still refuses, Adar needs to kill Galadriel, Elrond, and overconfident McDagaman. Because Galadriel and Elrond can't die, Adar instead says,
"I will meet you there with her head on a pike."
Oh no.
The idea that Adar both negotiates and fights with honor is absurd, given what happened in Season 1. The idea that he is going to wait before killing Galadriel is comical, as is him letting Elrond go. However, Elrond says that if Galadriel is about to die, he would like to bid her farewell. Glug tells Adar that Elrond is unarmed, which means Elrond has been searched, and Adar then permits Elrond to say goodbye to Galadriel. Elrond is refusing to give Adar what he wants, and so Adar has zero reason to allow this. The reason why a character in a similar situation might allow this would be as a show of good faith, but Adar has no reason to act in a trustworthy or honorable manner. He simply does, because plot, shit, stuff and things, go, go, go. As Elrond walks past Adar, he takes a thingy off of his shoulder and no one notices because they are fucking blind. And surprise, surprise, he gives it to Galadriel so that she can lockpick herself. They speak Sindarin to each other. Elrond says, "Forgive me." Galadriel replies, "Win." And then they kiss. Okay, I guess they really are the best of friends. This is depicted as a distraction to hide the fact that Elrond has just handed her a lockpick, but the fact that this happens moments after Elrond indiscreetly pulled a thingy off of his shoulder makes this comical. Also, the kiss itself could maybe be interpreted as platonic. They are very good friends after all, as the show keeps telling us. But the way this is built up, the manner in which it is drawn out, and the accompanying music definitely suggests that Elrond and Galadriel are deeply in love, which they are not. Additionally, at the time of the Peter Jackson trilogy, Galadriel is Elrond's mother-in-law, because Elrond marries Galadriel's daughter. This is not stated in the Peter Jackson films, but it is absolutely the case in the original source. I honestly don't particularly care that the writers of Rings of Power have decided to make Elrond and Galadriel kiss, because in Rings of Power, she is not his mother-in-law, and if the two of them were indeed in a fully romantic relationship, I wouldn't consider this to inherently be a problem because, again, I don't care if the writers deviate from the books. However, what I very much care about is how this kiss is used. The point of this is to distract us, the audience, which relies upon this kiss coming out of nowhere in universe and being assumed subconsciously by many people in the audience familiar with the lore to be a no-go zone. Which means we were distracted because of the kiss, which means it worked. We didn't expect the lockpick because we were so focused on the misdirection of the kiss. When I watched this scene for the first time, I was indeed distracted by the kiss, and I didn't notice Elrond giving Galadriel the lockpick. But there is an orc looking right fucking at him. And off-screen, we have to assume that Adar is keeping a very close eye on them, and neither the orcs nor Adar would be at all distracted by a kiss and a swelling emotional musical score, which means the writers have decided to misdirect the audience by pulling a kiss between these two characters out of thin fucking air. And they have leveraged it to make us not question how on earth Elrond managed to do this without being noticed. My first thought with this kiss was that they were doing a Dr. Evil, where Elrond was going to give Galadriel a lockpick that he was hiding inside his mouth. This would have been very funny, but what ends up happening is even funnier because it demonstrates that the writers for Austin Powers in Goldmember are actually better at writing a prison break than the writers for Rings of Power. In Austin Powers, Dr. Evil negotiates a transfer to a lower security prison in exchange for helping Austin find Goldmember. Frau Farbissina visits Dr. Evil at the lower security prison, they kiss, and she gives him a key with her mouth. Dr. Evil then convinces the other inmates with a musical number that they are going to start a riot while he walks out of the front door, and he subsequently escapes with Mini-Me. This all relies upon the lower security prison being relatively easy to escape, but this is all part of an absurdist parody land of a movie where things frequently do not make sense. It is highly self-referential, and so whilst there are holes in this sequence of events, they are quite obviously not as important as they would be in something like Rings of Power. Speaking of, Elrond grabs a lockpick off of his shoulder whilst surrounded by orcs. He walks up to Galadriel and gives her a smooch, and while smooching, he just kind of gives her the lockpick and no one notices. Later on, Adar returns to the tent and Galadriel is gone, and there are a couple of dead orcs nearby, which means Adar left 2 fucking guards to guard the greatest soldier in the history of soldiers. Galadriel was able to break free without either of them noticing, and she ran off. Okay, Adar is fucking blind. Acts with honor whilst also being demonstrably dishonorable. Elrond has invisible hands, believes Adar's assessment of Eregion and Sauron for some reason, and wants to tongue punch Galadriel's mudslide. Glug definitely searched Elrond. Elrond and overconfident MacDagaman then leave Adar's tent, and MacDagaman questions Elrond's negotiating strategy in English instead of Sindarin, whilst surrounded by orcs who can absolutely understand him. Elrond, however, does not respond in Sindarin because, hey, the writers remembered that they should maybe speak in a language that the orcs cannot. And so why MacDagaman didn't also speak Sindarin is a question I can't answer. He's just an idiot who likes revealing battle plans to his enemies. Elrond says that he knows something Adar does not. Prince Durin is rallying a legion of dwarves to their aid, and at the first rays of sunlight, MacDagaman will guide them straight into Adar's flank. This conversation goes back and forth in both English and Sindarin, and whilst the most critical parts are spoken in Sindarin, such as the references to a dwarven army, the writers inexplicably had both characters occasionally use English while walking through an orc camp. The lines spoken in English were, "The enemy outnumber us, why the confidence? What is that? Ride to them now," and "I will ensure Eregion's walls hold for one more night." The orcs should absolutely know that something is up, but they just kinda don't. The writers could have actually done something with this. The characters could have had two discussions at once, and maybe misled the orcs into expecting something else, so that they can go back to Adar and be like, hey, so those elves were just discussing the rings. Turns out Gil-galad has all three, and he is going to be attacking Eregion's western gate at 10 p.m. or something. But instead, no, the writers are incapable of writing a single conversation, let alone writing two at once, and so the characters just sometimes speak in English for no particular reason. Okay, overconfident MacDagaman likes telling the orcs their battle plans, and Elrond sometimes likes telling the orcs his battle plans. Back in Khazad-dûm, Durin gives a speech to his soldiers. And when I say he gives a speech to his soldiers, I mean this is clearly what the writers think is happening. But because the camera is so tightly focused on Durin, we don't actually see the dwarves he is speaking to, beyond a very small crowd of maybe 20 people. The bullet points of his speech are that Sauron stole smithing secrets from the dwarves, and he has returned to forge rings to enslave the dwarves alongside the rest of Middle-earth. The elves cannot defeat him, not without help from the dwarves. Sauron knows this, which is why he turned the king into a greedy retard, but Durin claims that the dwarves are stronger than Sauron knows.
Fight with me, so all the world can see that dwarven loyalty is a force stronger than any sorcery, more powerful than any army, deeper than the bones of the earth.
And he asks if they will fight with the elves for Khazad-dûm. The content of the speech I like, but how it is framed is awful. After Durin finishes, the camera moves and we see that there are hundreds of dwarves over there also apparently listening to him, which is where the scene presumably transitioned from a set to a composited CG shot of a crowd. This also makes me wonder how on earth Durin has managed to assemble this many dwarves so quickly without either the king's knowledge or approval, given that a few minutes ago the dwarves appeared to be entirely on the king's side. But I guess they did show us that Na'vi changed his mind, which means that all of the dwarves changed their minds, because Na'vi symbolizes the will of the people. That's all for Khazad-dûm for now, but we will return shortly. Right, Durin. Everyone likes him now, and King Durin doesn't notice his son assembling an army. Meanwhile, Elrond has been followed from Adar's camp, but has not been killed for some reason. His horse becomes a ninja, and then he orders the elves to defend the city. Elrond is surrounded by orcs, and so how he managed to get to his horse, let alone get on it, is entirely unknown. Almost as if the camera started rolling when the actor was already on his horse. Anyway, the orc battle line has seemingly disintegrated, and we see them skirmishing with the elven cavalry in the forest. I can't tell you why the elves have decided to charge into a forest, because this somewhat negates the effectiveness of a cavalry charge, but then again they are being led by a diplomat rather than by an experienced commander or tactician, so I guess this was inevitable. Elrond is knocked off his horse by a dude with a hammer. An orc then slices Elrond's horse's throat and licks the knife, which makes him very angry. Elrond then struggles to 1v1 an orc, but eventually manages to defeat his opponent with the power of editing and choreography. Elrond knocks the orc's sword to one side. The orc then reacts to getting hit by nothing, and he is then stabbed but not twisted or gutted. If you look closely, you can see that Elrond is holding a knife in his offhand, but the reaction from the orc does not at all match what Elrond did with his knife, so it appears that they didn't practice their choreography quite as much as they should have. Elrond then kills the orc by stabbing him into a catapult and launching him at Eregion. What? Yes, you heard me. Elrond just fired a catapult at the city that he is here to defend, the city that still has elves inside of it. The payload then crashes into the dog we saw earlier, the dog who was standing next to its dead owner, not understanding what was happening. That was a joke, the doggo doesn't get hit, but point being, this is exactly what happens when idiots do emotional manipulation. And this also indicates quite clearly that Elrond is willing to arbitrarily and unnecessarily fire a catapult at civilians. But at the same time, I do appreciate this clear reference to the deleted scene from the Battle of the Five Armies, in which Greasebag McMonobrow hides in a catapult for no reason, and he is accidentally catapulted into the mouth of a troll, thus saving Gandalf's life and allowing the events of The Lord of the Rings to take place. Ah, good times. Better times. Now back to Sloppyville. The army from Lindon manages to reach the walls of Eregion, which means they have somehow made it through the orc army that apparently outnumbers them 10-1. We never see a wide establishing shot to show us exactly how this happened, because such an establishing shot would reveal that this should not have been possible. Which gives me another opportunity to reference the extended edition of the Battle of the Five Armies. During the battle, Thorin and a few other dwarves charge into the orc army. We then spend some time doing some bullshit, after which we see that Thorin has miraculously emerged on the other side of the army. The problem with this was that Thorin became invincible whilst off-screen, because the size of the army was clearly set up, as were the logistics of where Thorin was and where he was trying to get to. The problem was not the clarity with which the information is conveyed to the audience. The problem was that what appears to happen does not seem possible given what the audience knows. Conversely, the problem in Rings of Power is that the relevant information has not been conveyed to the audience at all. We have no idea the size or location of either army. We have a vague understanding of the geography surrounding Eregion, but if I tried to draw an overhead map showing the layout of this battle, I would fail. Actually, fuck it, we're doing that. Right, so first off, let's do the river. So we've got, river kind of goes around like that, and then I guess it goes over there, maybe. This is the other side of the river, and it goes like that, and the mountain that Adar exploded is up here, which now actually means that we got loads of rocks and shit in the water, which means that this is not a river anymore, it is a mud pit. So then we have Eregion is kind of, you've kind of got the walls that are kind of like that. I guess they continue up there, maybe, probably. And inside you got little houses and shit. You got the forge, and it's all on fire. Oh no. This is Medania right here, who she's fallen off and she's kind of dead now. And we got like a couple of archers here with their bows. I think at this point there's 11 of them. I'm not drawing 11 of them, just imagine that there's 11 of them. And obviously in here you've got fucking unspecified number of orcs. Oh, and of course, at the thinnest part of the wall, we have their little, like, wall rippy thingy, whatever that thing was called. It's kind of there. Oh, and we got the bridge there, which I did check this because I thought this was a problem. But yeah, the bridge does have a drawbridge here, which is obviously up. So using the bridge was, I guess, not an option. So then we have kind of their line of catapults, maybe 10 of them, I don't know. But the catapults are all kind of aimed like that. Then over here, everything is like trees, and somewhere inside the trees, there are orcs. And I guess in the trees as well, Adar's got his little tent. And the elves, this is where it gets very confusing, because I don't know if the orcs are kind of encompassing this entire area, or if they're just here. And if they're just there, then how can there be 10 times as many of them as there are elves? So anyway, we have over here is where the horses come, and I can't draw horses, but that'll do. So the horses kind of come around here, and then they stop the cavalry charge there against the orcs. They go into Adar's house, and then they come back out again, and then they go into the woods. And I guess the fact that they went into the forest means that the tree, like, it must all be forest. Like, it might just be forest all around next to the river. So how you normally get into this city, I don't really know. You would think maybe there's a path up here, you know, that's connected to the bridge. I'm not necessarily saying that they should have used the bridge, but there should be a way to get to the city, or at least to the riverbed, without using the forest. So then the elven cavalry kind of does this for a little bit, and then they eventually end up out here, and they get to the river and then start fighting with the orcs. Gil-galad is he's kind of up here in Gilgi's house, and he's going to stay there until he's needed later. Also, we've got Damrod house. because he's also going to stay there until later. And yeah, more orcs just keep coming, so where they all are, where they're fighting, what they're doing when they are off screen, I have no idea. But yeah, I guess we got to get back to the episode now, don't we? Anyway, the 11 remaining soldiers have bravely held the line for what seems like hours. A couple of orcs have made it over the walls, but nothing major. We then see the orcs finish setting up their little velociraptor or whatever the fuck this thing was called. They started doing this a few hours ago, but I guess Eregion is trapped inside one of Sauron's temporal prisons. This device is absurd. Maybe it has some kind of precedent, either in real-life history or in fantasy, but if it does, I'm going to hazard a guess that there is a very good reason why I have never seen anything like this before. Basically, the way it seems to work is that you slowly hammer a load of pegs into the stone wall that you want to destroy, then you press a button and then the thing fires kind of like a reverse ballista, and it rips the pegs out and hopefully disintegrates the wall. This contraption is agonizingly slow to set up. It seems to be almost entirely ineffective. The orcs have only one, and it could very easily be countered by simply shooting the idiots who are operating it. Okay, Elrond, bad at fighting, likes horses, and catapults civilians for no reason. Fast forward to nighttime, which means all of the prior fighting has occurred within one 24-hour period. Granted, this isn't quite as clear-cut as the battle in episode 6 of season 1, because in that battle we did not cut away and everything took place sequentially, but this is also the first time we have seen it become nighttime, which would strongly suggest that this is less than 24 hours after the siege began. Glug tells Adar that the wall is stronger than expected, and that they may not breach it by morning. Adar replies,
"Well, did you make sure to go for the thinnest part of the wall that exists because the elves are retarded?"
Yeah, we tried that, but it is not quite thin enough. Do we have any more velociraptors?
No, $1 billion only gets you one of those, unfortunately.
Glug continues that Elrond is doing better than Adar had expected.
Many Uruk are dying.
And he asks if they should retreat, but Adar refuses, citing that Sauron must not escape. Now, if you have been paying attention, or, glancing up occasionally from your phone while watching this travesty, you will have noticed that Adar has become more and more like Sauron throughout Season 2. He has become the very thing he sought to destroy. He has begun to view the orcs as a tool rather than as his children. What the writers think they have done is depict Adar as one who claims to want to love and protect his children, but his actions are a schizophrenic mess. In one moment, he consoles Glug and says, "Yeah, don't worry, Sauron is totally dead." And in the next, he's like, "Oh, cool, you killed my messenger. Anyway, moving on." He also assembled an army to attack Eregion for no clear reason, and seemingly all of the orcs, apart from the odd defector, decided to march with him, trusting him as their Lord Father. Which means the show is telling us repeatedly that Adar loves the orcs, or that he loved the orcs, but his actions say differently. Which means the writers once again do not understand the character they have written. Glug says to Adar,
"Namkubagai,"
and Adar responds that he loves them too much to allow them to become Sauron's slaves. This suggests that he would rather see them dead than enslaved by Sauron. This is a perspective to have, but the fact that Adar elected to slam his children into the walls of Eregion for 24 hours, when evidently some kind of temporary allegiance with the elves was on the table, makes this rather questionable. And even if Adar did not trust that Gilgathot would allow him to just go back and chill in Mordor after all is said and done, he didn't even pursue this as an option. Had he formed an agreement with the elves, the worst case scenario would be that Sauron escapes and the elves attack the orcs, either outside of Eregion or in Mordor, which, in terms of an outcome, is not really any different to the current battle. Sauron can still escape either way. Who is attacking Eregion doesn't change that, and many orcs are dying, which would again be the same either way. In summary, Adar's decision to attack Eregion in the manner that he did indicates that he does not care for the orcs, which was one of his only defining character traits. And yet, the writers don't seem to understand this basic concept, because in the very next scene we see Adar offering a eulogy to the deceased orcs, even shedding a tear whilst doing so. Adar then realizes that Galadriel has escaped. As it is now nighttime, this means it has been hours since the negotiation with Elrond, and Adar has still not chopped her head off and mounted it on a pike, which tells us that Adar is forced to act like a clown to make the plot happen. Galadriel escapes whilst dressed as an orc, but she doesn't wear a helmet or anything, electing instead to hobo herself.
You there! Come here and help!
She is then asked to help dispose of their corpses, and after the funeral, she tries to slink off. The orcs find her, and she is rescued by Arendir, who has, I guess, been hanging around and has not taken part in the battle until this point.
Whatever force it was that brought you here, soldier, I am grateful for it.
That, my dear, was the script. This is the payoff for what happened in episode 6, and given the fact that Adar intended to kill Galadriel, despite having inexplicably not already done so, it means that the only reason Galadriel is alive is because Arendir found a couple of orcs wandering around in the woods carrying battle plans. Anyway, Galadriel continues.
I know a hidden way into the city.
There's another way, more secret.
You must find Sauron.
Sure, why not? Just magic an extra way in at the 11th hour. It's not that Galadriel shouldn't know this, it's not even that this hidden door exists. It's that the writers have just dropped this on us right when it becomes plot relevant, because they are incapable of constructing coherent setups and payoffs. Why bother having a line earlier in the season about a secret door when you can just kind of bundle the setup into the payoff? This will save both time and brain power. Galadriel wants Arendir to accompany her into Eregion so as to find Sauron, but Arendir responds that he has come here to kill Adar.
You goddamn moron.
Just bear with me here, because this is a lot to unpack, and this show is just unbelievably dense in how bad it is. Arendir has just been told, "Come with me, we have to find Sauron." And his reply is,
"I'm here for him."
Arendir's response should be, "I'm sorry, what? Sauron? Sauron is back? What do you mean? We need to find Sauron in Eregion. He's been dead for a millennia." This is similar to if Arendir was here to kill some high-ranking Nazi officer in 1947 after the end of World War II, and Galadriel was like, "Come with me, we have to find Adolf Hitler." Like, what the fuck is he still alive? Holy shit, I'm absolutely coming with you because we need to kill that motherfucker. Then, moments after forgetting who Adar is, the writers forget who Arendir is and why he is here. To briefly recap, Arendir told a tree that he would set things right so that the forest could be at peace. This was poorly executed, but it was built upon his affinity with nature that he sometimes has when the writers remember, and we have no reason to believe that Arendir was bullshitting when he said this. How exactly he was going to accomplish this was a mystery. The Ent told him that forgiveness takes an age, and he replied,
"In all that time, we will see to it that the trees of this wood are left in peace."
This indicated that Arendir was going to find a way to either get rid of the orcs or confine them to Mordor. But actually, it turns out that he is suicidally bent on a revenge quest to murder fuck Adar in the balls, something Galadriel is thoroughly versed in. Arendir says that Adar has taken everything from him, and that this is his justification in throwing his life away to attack Adar whilst he is surrounded by orcs. No. Arendir is now a totally different character who not only wants to die in an insane suicidal attack against Adar, but he also doesn't particularly care about stopping Sauron, even though Galadriel has just revealed to him that Sauron is alive and is doing evil inside Eregion. I would say that this scene breaks Arendir, but there wasn't really anything to break. Either way, this scene does more damage to Arendir than any other, and I am very much looking forward to constructing a list of characters from Season 1 who were not damaged by Season 2. Galadriel then convinces Arendir to help her by saying he can deal with Adar later, and he's like, yeah, okay. Okay, Adar gets very sad when orcs die, but also employs Unga Bunga. Arendir doesn't give two shits that Sauron has returned, is now a suicidal, revenge-driven maniac. Glug is now having serious doubts about Adar. Durin has finished assembling his army, but just before he leaves, Na'vi reveals that the king has turned his axe on Na'vi and his men. This means that Durin did indeed manage to assemble an entire fucking army without the king realizing until they were done, which I don't believe is at all possible, unless everyone in Khazad-dûm is now on Team Durin, and they all concealed this information from the king. I also can't tell you why Na'vi went anywhere near the king given their objective. The reason, of course, is that we need drama in a TV show. It turns out that King Durin has killed Na'vi's men, and he is going to dig the mine himself and most likely bump into a Balrog. What? I mean, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what the dialogue is.
He's gonna dig. He's gonna loose that beast.
That's not how this works. One guy with one fucking pickaxe is not going to accidentally mine all the way down into the depths of the mountain and find the Balrog. Na'vi is treating this as though there is a very thin wall protecting them from the Balrog, which is not coherent at all with what we have seen before. But who cares that this doesn't make any fucking sense? We need drama! So Durin is now like, oh no, where's Disa? Oh boy, do I save Khazad-dûm and let the elves die? Oh dear, oh dear.
Oh, what a pickle.
Na'vi says that if Durin leaves with the army, Khazad-dûm may not be here when he returns. Which means Na'vi is worried that Khazad-dûm will disappear in the next few days. These are certainly clear stakes. It is just a shame that it makes absolutely no fucking sense. Why is the army relevant? Are they going to battle the Balrog? Because from the sounds of it, the problem is the king, who is, one guy. If we had any amount of world building for Khazad-dûm, then this might work. Maybe the king has a group of loyalists who are equally greedy and equally retarded. But so far we have had nothing. I can understand Durin being like, oh snap, I gotta protect my wife and slap the shit out of my father. And so Durin not leading the army to Eregion is acceptable. Pulling back the entire army because the king has turned into a psychotic killer is not. Anyway, dramatic cutaway, oh whatever will Durin do. King Durin is now Murder Man. Na'vi went to speak to the king for no reason. Why? And he also thinks the king can dig to the bottom of the fucking mountain in a couple of days. Oh my god. And then, because in that scene we're told that it's Disa who wants him to pull back the army, so Disa thinks an army is necessary to stop the king. Back in Eregion, Anatar is doing spooky evil shit. He tells Celebrimbor that when he heals Middle-earth, all of their suffering will be worth it. He explains that he doesn't like treating Celebrimbor the way that Morgoth treated him. Because, you see, Sauron is just misunderstood. Earlier that day, he magicked Celebrimbor and made him throw Medania to her death, but Sauron's actually a product of his environment. His papa was very mean to him, you see. Maybe Sauron is lying, but there is no fucking way Celebrimbor should buy into this at this point, and Sauron should know this. Anyway, Sauron continues that he was tortured relentlessly, and he learned to embrace this torture as a game to see whose will was mightier. Celebrimbor then says,
"But after all that, you would still choose to inflict the same pain upon me."
Which is an apt question. Sauron replies that actually, he is a victim of Celebrimbor, because Celebrimbor's refusal to create the rings forced Sauron to torment him. And therefore, if we do some mental gymnastics, Sauron is a victim of Celebrimbor's obstinance. I'm not going to bother breaking down the holes with this logic because at this point, it seems very much as though Sauron is just saying words to make himself appear sympathetic to Celebrimbor, although why he is doing this, I can't tell you. He is just an evil manipulator, and he does evil manipulation because that's kind of what he does.
You truly are the great deceiver. You can deceive even yourself.
This is the kind of line that sounds smart until you think about it. When you deceive yourself, it means you are ignoring certain truths so as to convince yourself of something else. This is not the same as literal deception, because if you fabricate a lie to convince yourself of something, then you will by necessity know that it is a lie, which means you cannot believe it to be true. So maybe Sauron does believe what he is saying, but the idea that Sauron has deceived himself because, wouldn't you know it, he's just that good at deception, is a misuse of the word deception. Anatar tells Celebrimbor to finish the rings, and then he wanders off to go and do more important evil somewhere else. Now alone in the forge, Celebrimbor takes the 9 and casts them into the fire. After a brief cutaway, it turns out that the rings are seemingly indestructible, as they emerge from the forge, and yet they are cold to the touch. Which, if you recall, is indeed the thing from the thing. The writers have done it again. They took the thing from somewhere else, and they made it happen again.
Clap, you dopamine addict! Clap!
So how did Celebrimbor accidentally make indestructible rings? Unless they are indestructible because of Sauron's evil goo. But then this raises another question. How on earth can Celebrimbor forge a magical ring using whatever methods he has used previously if one of his materials is now an unknown goo that he has never seen before? And for that matter, what exactly are these rings supposed to do? And how can Celebrimbor possibly craft them to fulfill this purpose? Yes, magic is a part of the process, but we have actually been told a fair bit about how the rings are made. The elven rings were made using an alloy of mithril and gold or silver from Valinor. They also used gems that were intended to capture the essence of Valinor. The rings for men, however, have been crafted using a combination of goo and whatever gold or silver they could get their hands on. These two processes are not the same at all. And so how exactly Celebrimbor has made the rings do whatever they are meant to do is entirely unknown. Anyway, he puts them in a bag and tries to free himself from his shackles, unsuccessfully, before he remembers that he has a little device that looks a bit like a hole punch. Instead of placing the chain of his shackles into the contraption like a normal person, naturally, he places his thumb inside and demonstrates that his will is mightier than that of his captors, and he manages to escape. Right, Sauron manipulates in an evil manner because he is an evil manipulator. And he also leaves. He leaves. Celebrimbor accidentally made indestructible rings and really doesn't like his thumb. These remaining 11 elves on the walls of Eregion are proving to be the most effective soldiers in the history of cinema because they have single-handedly held off legions of orcs during a non-stop assault that has lasted for more than a day. The elves from Lindon are at this point in the riverbed, and so, naturally, the elves from Eregion begin throwing baggies filled with napalm and igniting them with fire arrows. Could it be that the elves waited until nighttime to use this very effective strategy so that it would look more visually striking for the camera, even though in so doing they are now risking setting their allies on fire? Quite possibly. Of fucking course they did. Meanwhile, there are still civilians running around in the square outside of the forge for some unknown fucking reason because whilst, yes, they are many hours into a siege at this point, Amazon paid good money for this set and I'll be gosh darned if they aren't going to get some mileage out of it. This next part is so fucking funny that I can't accurately capture my reaction to it when I first watched this scene. Celebrimbor walks out of the forge and immediately gets catapulted again, because wouldn't you just know it, twice now, within seconds of leaving the forge, he has been hit by a catapult. He is knocked unconscious and some soldiers arrive like, oh man, he really has gone crazy. Look, he chopped off his thumb. Oh well, better put him back inside the forge until he gets better. They also refer to Adar as the Lord of Eregion, which indicates that these soldiers are basically just evil minions at this point. I also have no clue why they are here instead of reinforcing their 11 compatriots bravely defending the city. Actually, saying that, one of these guys is the captain, so I guess he's decided to pull back both himself and 6 of his soldiers to make sure that Celebrimbor doesn't wander off. And if my maths is accurate here, then this means that there are currently 2 elves defending Eregion. But anyway, before they can put Celebrimbor back to bed, who could possibly show up?
Release him!
Yay!
Galadriel has gone through her secret door that didn't exist until 5 minutes ago, and she has managed to arrive precisely when she means to so as to save Celebrimbor from these clowns. The soldiers then release Celebrimbor, which suggests that they are not evil minions, they are indeed just fucking idiots. Because Galadriel is like, no you fools, this guy is the Lord of Eregion, you silly dum-dums. The catapults then stop firing so that the characters can have a chat. Celebrimbor presents Galadriel with the 9 rings for men, but neither of them mention the 7 dwarven rings that have already been crafted, because that was just this other thing. Anyway, Celebrimbor blames himself, saying that a part of him knew something was sus, but he liked what Sauron was cooking and he wanted more. Galadriel reveals that she did the same, although her eyes were firmly set on the army that she believes Sauron gave her to defeat himself, even though this isn't what happened. And also his cock. And then this happens. So either Sauron is very angry that he wandered off to do some evil bullshit only to come back and find that his vital prisoner has escaped with the rings, or he was really grossed out by finding a severed thumb on the table. Then the writers clarify the nature of Galadriel's secret hole.
Hurry. The old dwarven tunnel. I used it to enter the city undetected.
Well, it certainly is nice of them to clarify how you get in and out of Eregion, 51 minutes into the battle. And no, this is not comparable to the revelation in the 2 towers that the women and children can get out of the caves and into the mountains, because Gamling and presumably Theoden believed that it was pointless to even try, as the Uruk-hai would chase them down and overwhelm them. In Rings of Power, the Dwarven Tunnel is presented as a means by which to safely evacuate the city, and yet it appears that this has not happened. Yes, Sauron was running things, so he wouldn't want the city to be evacuated, but no one says,
Sir, what should we do with the women and wounded and children and the wounded child women? Should they go into the old Dwarven Tunnel?
Old Dwarven Tunnel, you say? Interesting. No. They can just run around the square for the next 27 hours or so. They'll be fine.
Celebrimbor instead says that Galadriel must take the rings, and that he will stay behind and slow Sauron down. He tells Galadriel to save as many people as she can, and he resigns himself to go down with the city he built, and the soldiers decide to stand with Celebrimbor. Galadriel then says,
I'm sorry. I brought him here.
Oh my god. Are we about to get it? Are the writers finally going to make Galadriel apologize for what she actually did wrong rather than what they think she did wrong?
I'm sorry I wasn't stronger.
Beat him up.
Neither of us was strong enough.
The writers have indeed, once again, shielded Galadriel from facing the consequences of her actions. What she said was, "I'm sorry I brought him here." Meaning, I'm sorry that I didn't realize who Halbrand actually was, and I endangered everyone by accidentally bringing Sauron into Eregion and involving you. What she should have said was, I'm sorry I lied to you and hid Sauron's identity after having it confirmed because I was blinded by my pride and arrogance. This is another indicator that Galadriel has learned fucking nothing, and because the writers of this pissfest have no idea who this disgusting character is, they will never allow her to properly address her past actions. This, right here, was the opportunity to do so, because more than anyone else, Celebrimbor has been a victim of Galadriel's ego. But, in Rings of Power, lest we forget, there are no consequences. Like Galadriel, Celebrimbor realizes that he was tricked by Sauron. Like Galadriel, he is aware that he is not blameless, and that he, to some degree, allowed himself to be used. Like Galadriel, he wants to right his wrongs and atone for his sins. But this is where the two diverge. Galadriel lied to everyone about what she had done wrong. She attempted to conceal Sauron's identity, and she allowed the rings to be crafted. If not for Elrond accidentally finding the scroll by the river that Sauron forgot to move, Galadriel would have been able to keep this a secret indefinitely. And it is anyone's guess what would have actually happened in Season 2 were this the case. Conversely, when faced with his failings, Celebrimbor immediately accepts them and acts in a selfless manner to put things right. Don't take this as me saying that Celebrimbor is a good character because he is a complete mess, but he is absolutely superior to Galadriel, and this is one reason why. Celebrimbor then tells Galadriel, it is not strength that overcomes darkness, but light. Armies may rise, hearts may fail, yet still light endures, and is mightier than strength, for in its presence all darkness must flee. And he says Namarie to Galadriel, and returns to the Forge to face Sauron. The catapults then realize that the dialogue scene is over, and they begin firing once again. Celebrimbor entirely accepts his mistakes, understands what he did wrong, willing to atone for his sins even if it means his death. Galadriel still doesn't understand jack shit, and rescues civilians off-screen because, well, spoiler alert, we don't see Galadriel again for the rest of this episode, so I guess the writers didn't want to show her saving civilians. For some reason, yeah, do with that what you will. Sauron is angrily smashing things because angry. Celebrimbor walks in with the soldiers to confront him.
You shall not find them here.
So these 7 admittedly brave idiots have just learned that Anatar is Sauron, and they decide to be like,
Stop! You violated the law.
Like, come on team, let's go and arrest Satan. That'll fucking work. Rather predictably, no it doesn't, because why would it? The soldiers surround Sauron, but oh no, Sauron has mind-controlled them and he makes them all kill each other. Yeah, I don't have a clue what to even say about this. The whole point, I naively thought, was that Sauron had to worm his way inside people's minds, as he did with Galadriel, Adar, and Celebrimbor, which granted him a degree of control over them. There appears to be a correlation between the amount of time one spends with Sauron and the degree of control he is able to exert. And this was somewhat justified by the fact that these 3 victims had allowed Sauron inside. But actually, no. He can just snap his fingers and make anyone do anything he wants. Again, stating the obvious, turning your sword on an ally is probably the ultimate expression of acting against one's own desires. If Sauron can do this, why didn't he make Durin not be suspicious of him? Why didn't he make Galadriel become his queen? Why didn't he see Adar's betrayal coming? Why didn't he literally force Celebrimbor to make the rings rather than coercing him? There are an infinite number of questions like this that I could ask that the writers can't answer, and because they have decided to amplify Sauron's powers in Season 2, they have created far more plot and character issues than this caused in Season 1. So, how on earth did Sauron do this? Sauron does say,
You think it was only you who put yourself in my power.
which is meant to suggest that Sauron has done to these guards exactly what he did to Celebrimbor, Galadriel, and Adar previously. This implies that, off-screen, he has spent the last couple of weeks going around the entire city of Eregion, playing mind games with every guard and gaining control over them, because he figured, well, 7 of them might try to arrest him for some reason later down the line. Alternatively, he specifically corrupted these 7, and he was just insanely lucky that the guys who came to arrest him were the same ones that he could mind control. Actually, the most likely explanation is that there are only 12 soldiers in Eregion, he corrupted all 12, and these 7 were the only ones left after the fighting on the wall. Sauron is Magic God-Man, but also forgets that he is Magic God-Man because TV show fucking... Ah! The orcs have almost managed to break through the thinnest part of the wall using the Velociraptor. What are they then receives her second line of dialogue.
They'll breach the wall soon, Commander. Won't they?
I'm not entirely sold on this one. Why don't you ask Elrond what they are again? Elrond then takes her to line up a shot at the Velociraptor, believing for some reason that one fire arrow can destroy this siege weapon, when, if this were the case, it would already be destroyed because it has just kind of been sat here for like a day, which tells us that no one else has even tried to destroy it. Unfortunately though, what are they is regrettably turned into a pincushion, which means she did not receive any characterization beyond that which she received in episode 4. She does, however, pull out one of the pins to her cushion because she is just that cool, and she uses it to one-shot the Velociraptor, which explodes because there was a barrel of petrol right next to it because, of course, there was. Given the fact that this is the thinnest part of the wall, given the fact that the orcs have been pummeling this wall for over a day at this point, and given that What Are They was moments ago worried that the orcs would breach the wall, deliberately causing a gigantic fireball at this weakened location is a rather special move, which actually means that in her final moments, What Are They does receive some characterization. She doesn't understand how explosions work. Elrond then orders a charge. Arondir is seen on the battlements. You can tell that he is a main character because he is standing on top of the battlements instead of behind them, because unlike this one guy who died earlier, Arondir has plot armor. Adar observes from a distance and tells Glug to send in Damrod. Glug doesn't want to because Damrod will kill their own kind as well, but Adar insists. Damrod, the legendary troll who eats dragons for breakfast, starts ambling towards them. Why Adar waited until now to do this, I have no idea, but I guess it was a rather dramatically effective moment to send him in. The elves have just had their big hero moment, so now it's time for Adar to whip out the big guns. Damrod walks towards the city, splattering fighters on both sides. Glug is not happy, and I'm sure Glugwife would be proud of him for standing up for himself. Damrod then decides to chase Elrond for some reason, obviously because drama, while Arondir attempts to bring the troll down. Damrod backhands Elrond instead of tearing his head off, and he is then thwacked in the stomach with the broken Velociraptor. This make Damrod angry. Damrod smash. But oh no, who's this? Gilga Useless has arrived precisely when he means to, and he, Arondir, and Elrond team up to kill Damrod. Well, that was both easy and disappointing. Also, I'm sorry, but where the fuck have you been this entire time? Been off doing more important things elsewhere, have we? Overseeing the battle from a command post? Jacking it in the corner? Who fucking knows? Anyway, Elrond tells Gilgapenis that he should not be here.
King's place is wherever the need is greatest.
No, this is a war zone. You might die. The elves have already lost tens of soldiers, including fan favorite What Are They? You really should not be here. Actually, speaking of, at this point, I have no idea what the state of the battle is, because again, we have not received a single clear establishing shot. The only narrative points in this battle so far have been that the Velociraptor exploded and then they killed a troll. Apart from that, it has been a montage of people hitting each other with swords, and so I have no idea who is winning or what strategies are being used and why. It is just smash wall versus no, don't do that, stop it. And this has gone on for pretty much an entire hour at this point. Anyway, Adar decides that he needs to get involved, and he leads his children into battle. Glug, notably, does not go with him. This next part is pretty confusing because Adar was just seen at the tree line on the other side of the riverbed, and a couple of minutes later he is rallying the orcs to follow him. This clearly indicates that he is currently running across the riverbed and is leading an attack right at this moment. But actually it turns out that no, because the battle pauses for a moment because we got another dialogue scene, even though Adar is currently next to the catapults, which are on the other side of the river. Which means, during this dialogue scene, there is an army of orcs charging at them, and it is certainly a good thing that none of them have bows. Then the sun rises. Much like the thing from the other thing, I like it I don't fucking care anymore. Fine, just keep ripping it from when someone else did it. At least this will keep the brainlets entertained. Speaking of entertaining vapid morons who clap when they see the thing that they know, given that the sun is rising, this means that the elves have won, because the orcs are all going to receive third-degree burns in a matter of seconds. Except that actually, fuck you, that isn't how it works anymore, because damn it, we have a scene to do. The writers literally forgot that they established that the orcs fucking melt in sunlight. But anyway, the dwarves are meant to show up at dawn, but unfortunately none have come, and overconfident McDagaman has arrived injured. He tells Elrond that Durin recalled the army and that no one is coming to help. Which means Durin did indeed consider an entire army to be necessary in bringing down his father. Gilgadonk orders that his 28 soldiers form ranks and they charge the orcs. Yes, you heard me. The elven army now consists of 28 soldiers, plus the High King, Elrond, and Arondir. Also, why charge when you can just leave and get inside the city? The soldiers from Eregion have done remarkably well, having suffered only a single loss as opposed to your hundreds. But anyway, Elrond does not follow, and he repeats to himself,
Durin will come.
He remains immobile, frozen with grief as his kin are slaughtered, believing that his friend has abandoned him to die. This would be a powerful moment, if not for the fact that all, and I do mean all, of the parts required to make this function are utterly broken to their core. During the battle, and I use the word battle generously because, again, this is 30 guys versus a seemingly infinitely respawning horde of orcs, 19 elves are killed on screen. It is admittedly difficult to confirm all of them, so take this with a margin of error, call it somewhere between 15 and 25. Which means, by the end of the episode, we should have Elrond, Gil-galad, and approximately 10 elves left. Arondir is maybe dead, but also maybe not, because he comes across Adar and tries to kill him. This doesn't work because Adar has ninja skills and he catches Arondir's arrow mid-air, which is a thing he can do now. We did see this happen in Season 1, and the idea that elves, which Adar appears to be some variety of, being able to pull this kind of shit, I don't have an inherent problem with. Although the fact that the only 2 times we have seen this happen has been with Arondir and Adar means that it very much appears as though the writers will only allow their main characters to do this. Adar then stabs Arondir with his own arrow, and Arondir returns the favor before Arondir is stabbed, but for real this time. I am guessing that Arondir isn't actually dead because we don't see him get finished off, so we can consider this another cliffhanger. The orcs then tear through what remains of the thinnest part of the wall before they finally break into the city. Adar approaches Elrond. Elrond tries to stab him, but fails. Adar then chokes Elrond before throwing him to the ground and revealing that Elrond had been carrying Galadriel's ring around his neck this entire time. Why does Elrond have the ring? Why did he bring it into battle? The ring doesn't appear to enhance your combat effectiveness, it's not like a power-up, and he isn't even fucking wearing it, so he absolutely could have left it in Lindon. The plan to vaporize Sauron using the elven rings is not a plan that Elrond has been made aware of at any point. And given that Elrond is not wearing the ring, it means he isn't using its power to give him some kind of edge, perhaps hoping that he will start seeing vague visions of the future as Galadriel did. His reasoning also cannot have been to return it to Galadriel because, as far as he was aware, Galadriel had been killed back in episode 4. I cannot fathom why Elrond would ever do this. But he has to, because plot. Additionally, this means that Glug did not search him in Adar's tent. That said, I am actually quite pleased with myself because I was absolutely right with my guess in episode 4. Can we please place bets on how long it will take for the writers to forget that they established this? I'm going with 3 episodes. I think by episode 7, something will have happened that could have been fixed with this ring, and it will not be. Elrond could have saved any number of elves by using this ring, but specifically, he could have saved what are they? Hell, he could have even saved his horse, and yet he chose not to. Yes, he was in the middle of a battle, so this was not a sure thing, but he didn't even try. And the reason why he didn't try is because the writers wanted to conceal the fact that Elrond has the ring until the end of the episode so as to serve as a cliffhanger. We then, finally, cut to the credits. Doomed to Die is incompetent in almost every way. The battle itself is a numbing and monotonous slog because the writers do not understand how to structure sequences like this. As I mentioned in part 5, it is very common in fight and battle sequences to have emotional highs followed by emotional lows, so as to convey an ebb and flow to the conflict, which helps to keep the audience interested in what is happening. The scales will tip in favor of each side, usually multiple times, which helps to prevent extended scenes of conflict from coming across as an unexciting montage of people punching each other. To compare this sequence, again, to the battle for Helm's Deep. The Uruks arrive and immediately begin firing at the defenders with crossbows. The ladders go up within the first minute of the battle, but the heroes manage to hold them off, at least for now. The next escalation is when the Uruks assault the gate with a battering ram and they breach the deeping wall, which is when the battle turns for the worse in a drastic manner. After this point, the defenders are forced to retreat. Aragorn and Gimli buy Theoden time to reinforce the damaged gate, but the Uruks raise their giant ladders to assault the Hornburg. The defenders retreat into the keep before riding out to meet the Uruks once more to give the women and children a chance to escape, and they are assisted by Gandalf, Éomer, and the Rohirrim. This battle is a constant back and forth, and it is a perfect example of how to pull off a sequence such as this, whilst keeping the audience engaged with the characters. The battle is heavily focused on the characters, and it avoids becoming monotonous through repeatedly escalating the threat that the Uruk-hai pose with their battle tactics and their multiple siege weapons. As the battle escalates, we frequently see wide camera shots that help to keep this complex battle sequence coherent, and this ensures that whenever something changes, the audience understands what, where, and why. Conversely, the Battle of Eregion in Rings of Power is pathetic. The orcs bombard the city for an unspecified amount of time with catapults. Adar then dams the river and the orcs charge at the walls. One elf is killed by an orc with a bow. The orcs use a single wool-ripping machine to tear down the wall. They also employ a ladder, and we see that some of them are carrying a battering ram, but this is never seen in action. A handful of orcs climb the wall, and 15 minutes later we see them fighting on the wall, and eventually we see that the orcs killed the archers. The elves arrive, but nothing happens for a while because of the negotiation scene, during which the siege continues off-screen. Later, the elves and the orcs skirmish in the woods for a bit, and there doesn't seem to be any organization on either side. After, 8 hours or so, the wall-ripping machine is finally ready, and it rips the wall, but it doesn't rip it quite hard enough. The elves from Lindon approach the city, and everyone battles in a monotonous slog for quite a while. Everyone just kind of wanders around, in some cases without wearing a helmet. The Wall Ripper rips again, but it still doesn't punch all the way through. What Are They blows up the Wall Ripper and dies. Adar sends in Damrod, who dies. Adar leads a charge with more orcs and kills most of the remaining defenders. The dwarves do not arrive as expected, and the orcs win because they don't melt. That's it. The vast majority of this battle is simply people hitting each other with swords. The size of the orc army is totally ambiguous, and the size of the defending Eregion force is seemingly only 12 guys. The objectives of the three armies are equally simplistic. The orcs want to punch a hole in the wall with one single siege weapon, and until that happens, they are just going to run in the direction of the wall on repeat until they die. The Eregion defenders are going to stand there and shoot the orcs until they run out of arrows. The Lindon Army's objective doesn't seem to be any more complex than kill orcs. Episode 7 of Season 2 of Rings of Power doesn't even function in a turn-your-brain-off kind of way, because it actively assaults the viewer with absurdity and confusing characterization at such a relentless pace that you are rarely given any opportunity to understand what you just saw, before we move on to the next poorly constructed set piece. There are absolutely criticisms to make of the characters and plot in the Battle of the Bastards in Season 6 of Game of Thrones, but in sheer spectacle and technical execution, it is one of the best battle sequences that I have ever seen. Battle of the Bastards cost $11 million. Doomed to Die cost in excess of $50 million. And you may be thinking, well, is it fair to compare Rings of Power to a show like Game of Thrones, which at the time was considered to be one of the greatest TV shows ever made? I will say this slowly on the off chance that any of you still watching at this point consider this to be an unfair comparison. Yes. Rings of Power was intended to eclipse Game of Thrones, and it absolutely could have. It is the most expensive TV production by quite a margin. It is based on the exceptionally broad and detailed work of one of the most influential authors of all time. This episode in particular has been built up to for the past 6 hours of the series. And at a casual glance, yeah, that's certainly a battle. But if you are actually paying attention to what happens, it should be very clear that episode 7 of season 2 of Rings of Power is a catastrophic failure. Thank you guys so much for watching. We only have one more to go, and I shall have it with you as soon as I can. If you have enjoyed the video, please chuck me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you are feeling particularly generous, please leave a comment below. As usual, links in the description for the second channel and the community Discord server. Check them out as you will. But for now, I have to leave you. I will be back for the season finale. See you then.